Screen. All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. My name is Rosanna Robertson. I am with Frontera Healthcare Network, and with me today, I have John Guerrero, our licensed professional counselor here at Frontera. We have a really exciting presentation for you this morning on building resilience in the face of adversity. This is brought to you in partnership with the Texas Wine Auction, and we have started the Wellness Uncorked initiative. And as part of this initiative, we are going to start holding monthly educational seminars on various mental health topics. And they will be the first Monday of the month at 11 a.m. We'll have a short 15-minute educational talk. And then we will have 15 minutes afterwards set aside for questions and answers. So if you have any questions, comments, like what you hear, want to know more about something, please feel free to drop it in the chat and we will answer your questions as we go through. I am going to share our slideshow that we have for you guys. Let me get it in presenter view. And full disclosure, I want to let y'all know this is our first time to go live on YouTube. So please give us a little grace as we are working out all the details. Make sure I can get this. See, I think that was the wrong way. One more time, let me get the slides up here. And whenever you hop on, if you want to say hello, let us know that you're watching. There we go. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm very excited about the opportunity to talk about this topic today. When they told me about the topic, I really got excited because it's one that I talk about a lot with a lot of my counseling clients, but also that I've just studied a lot of and read a lot about, just trying to develop for myself. And so again, we're talking about building resilience in the face of adversity. And that's a really important topic just because adversity is something that probably all of us are not strangers to. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about like what adversity is, what does that look like, how do we define it? But it's important to think about when we go through hard times, how are we prepared to handle those things? And a lot of times we find ourselves stuck, and that's just the reality of it. And we need support, we need encouragement. And so that's what this presentation is hopefully going to accomplish for you all. And so we'll just go through it. And I've got some quotes and some other things to share. A lot of it will be on your screen. As we start, I want to just go over some definitions. And so looking at, first of all, what is adversity? We're talking about how to build resilience in the face of adversity. It's going to be really important for us to understand what adversity really is. And so I found this quote on Google Images from helpfulprofessor.com. Really good definition that I thought summed it up pretty well. Adversity refers to difficult or challenging circumstances that pose obstacles or hardships. And so I want to just real quick break that part down. And so difficult or challenging circumstances. And if you look at just the history of your life, you can probably think about different levels of different difficult circumstances that you've experienced, from hardships in childhood, from marital problems, financial problems, just different relationship issues in your life, health problems, things that have come up that cause us a challenge. And then the second part of that is that they pose obstacles or hardships, and so they get in the way of our well-being, of our happiness, of our success, of just the direction that we're going in life. And so adversity, we face, all of us face adversity. It's inevitable, and we'll talk about that a little more in just a moment. But an example they put on here is just a real basic one. A person losing their job unexpectedly faces adversity as they struggle to find new employment and manage their finances. And so you see the difficult circumstance, which is losing a job, but then the obstacles and the hardships that come along with that are sometimes the harder things to deal with, right? So we know what those challenges are like. We all face them, but then it's what those things create for us. That's where the real adversity comes in. And so it's going to be really important for us to have a really good understanding of what adversity is and what that looks like. There's a quote here from Walter Annenberg where he says, adversity tests us from time to time, and it is inevitable that this testing continues during life. That word inevitable is really important. It means it's unavoidable. As long as we're living in this human life, we're going to face some kind of challenge. We're going to face some kind of difficult circumstance. And so he says they come about as ways to test us from time to time, and they continue throughout our lives. I found this quote from an article about overcoming adversity, transformpsychology.com. It says, adversity in the context of psychology and counseling refers to any experience a person encounters that they find difficult to cope with or that produces unwanted effects later in life. And then it talks about just different categories of adversity. And so I want to run down this list real quick with you, just so you kind of get an idea of what kind of challenges we might face in life. The first one is existential adversity. So that's us having serious life-threatening experiences or things that really call our livelihood into question. Then there's economic adversity, being unable to afford the basic cost of living. Social and cultural, being excluded by your social group or your cultural group. Psychological adversity, which is experiencing some form of abuse. And then there's relational adversity, which is the breakdown of close, meaningful relationships. And so any of us can experience any of those things at different times in our lives. There's a study that was put out many years ago called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study that really looked at the adversities that children face early in life and how those impact them later in life. And so even now as an adult, you can get online, you can take a little self-assessment, little quiz to determine how many adverse childhood experiences you had when you were a young person, and then maybe even look at how those things have impacted you as an adult. And so I just want to reiterate that it's clear that adversity, suffering, and hardships are all inevitable parts of our journey through life, that some of us face these in more extreme forms and some of us experience them more frequently. Regardless of the severity or the frequency of these things, we have to understand that as long as we're living, we all are going to face challenges of one kind or another. Okay. So if we understand now what adversity is, the next question is, what is resilience? If we're talking about how to build resilience in the face of adversity, we really have to have a good definition of what resilience is and what that looks like. So here's a quote from an article from the American Psychological Association. It says, psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. I have this quote from an Indian philosopher named J. Krishnamurti. He says this: life is and must be a series of challenges and responses. The challenge is not according to our likes and dislikes, nor according to our particular desires, but assumes different forms at different times. That's that adversity. He says if we have the capacity to meet that challenge adequately, fully, and directly, then there is no problem. That's what resilience is. It's that capacity then to confront that adversity and to meet that challenge, to respond well to it. And he says adequately, fully, and directly. He says because we don't meet that challenge fully and adequately, a problem arises. So if we don't have that resilient mindset or attitude, if we're not able to adapt well in the face of that adversity, that's when more problems arise and we end up getting stuck in our struggles. As we continue with this idea, here's another definition of resilience from the same website. It says here, resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks and challenges, adapting and recovering quickly. So again, there's that word adapting. That it's not necessarily about just ignoring the problem or doing something to make it go away, but it's about learning how to adapt in the face of that difficulty. It says resilience involves maintaining a positive mindset, perseverance, and the ability to learn and grow from adversity. Resilient individuals display mental and emotional strength, allowing them to navigate through difficult situations with determination and resilience. And then over here, it gives lots of examples of character traits or personality traits that help people to be that or have that resilience in the face of adversity. Things like adaptability, again, optimism, self-confidence, problem solving, flexibility, emotional regulation, and then there's that determination or that perseverance. Quote from the American Psychological Association again. Says psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity. Being resilient doesn't mean that a person won't experience difficulty or distress. It just means you're able to bounce back from difficult circumstances as well as exhibiting profound personal growth. And that's what having that resilient mindset is all about. It's about that personal growth that helps us to develop the skills that we need to recover from the things that we're going through. It's that capacity here to experience hardships and struggles and to move forward and to grow rather than being so affected that you become stuck and shut down. And that's what we're trying to avoid. And that's, again, the whole purpose of this talk today. All right, so here's a list of the most common factors of resilient people. This is from Brene Brown in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. And if you've never read anything or listened to Brene Brown, she is phenomenal. Writes a lot about resilience, vulnerability, overcoming shame, and kind of just knowing how to endure those hard things in life. And so she says that in her research, here are 5 factors of resilient people. Number 1, that they're resourceful and they have good problem solving skills. Number 2, that they're more likely to seek help. Number 3, they hold the belief that they can do something that will help them to manage their feelings and to cope. That's important. It's just that belief that they're able to do something. That's where that capacity comes from. Number 4 is they have social support available to them. And then number 5, this is really important, that they're connected with other people, such as family or friends. They have a network of support that they can rely on when they're going through difficult times. So as I read different articles and listen to different podcasts and then think about, for example, what Brene Brown says, what other people have said about resilience, I kind of condense it into 4 main things that can help a person to build those resilient skills. Number 1 is making meaning out of life and our suffering. Number 2 is having the skills to problem solve and cope with difficulties. Number 3 is positive relationships that serve to support and encourage us. And the last one is an emphasis on self-care, which really begins with understanding that we have value and worth and that we're worth taking care of ourselves. We are worth having well-being and happiness. And so I want to just spend our last couple of minutes talking real quick about those 4 things as how we can intentionally and purposefully build that resilient skill. So the first one is making meaning in life and in our suffering. So we have to know that our lives are meaningful. And when we really begin to understand that our lives are meaningful, and we understand that we as individuals have a purpose and have a meaning in life, then that also then transitions to and applies to our suffering, that we begin to understand that our suffering is meaningful. There's a quote from Granger Smith, who actually was a country music artist and then wrote a book called Like a River after a really life-changing tragedy that he and his family experienced, where he says, pain is not permanent and pain is not pointless. And so it's really difficult to understand that our lives have meaning and purpose. And so therefore, by extension, our suffering can have meaning and purpose. I don't know what that is for each and every one of you, but you know what? That's something that self-discovery can help reveal. Here's a quote from Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book called Man's Search for Meaning. He says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. It is this spiritual freedom which cannot be taken away that makes life meaningful and purposeful. And so it's going to be really important for us to understand that if our lives are meaningful and there's meaning in how we're living, then there's also meaning in how we're suffering. Viktor Frankl also says, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. When we have meaning and purpose in life, nothing can deter us. So we may experience obstacles and hindrances along the way and in the form of adversity, but we'll be able to persevere through those things. And that's because our meaning and our purpose are too clear and too important for us to quit or to give up. And so the question then for you is, what is your meaning in life? And how can you apply that to the adversities that you're going through? The next thing on the list was the skills, developing resilient skills. And so I think one of the greatest resilient skills that we can look at is this skill of radical acceptance. I think we can skip ahead and go. I think I got off a little bit on my notes.
All good.
Yeah. So developing resilient skills, I think, really starts with radical acceptance. And that's the idea of accepting and no longer resisting or trying to fight against what has already happened to us, looking at what we can change and letting go of what we are unable to change. There's a quote from Tara Brock who says, radical acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and our lives as it is. And so that's looking at our lives and the things that have happened to us and saying, this is what has happened to me. This is my reality. Acceptance is not necessarily the same as agreement. It doesn't mean that you agree with it or that you're approving of it. And it doesn't also just mean tolerating. It means saying, here's where I am. Here's what I have. That we simply say, I'm going to accept the life that I have in this situation that I have without judgment. And then I'm going to look at what I can be doing, what I have control over that will help me to move forward. The next thing on the list, the third thing, is those positive relationships. So when we stop doing life on our own and instead lean on the help of others, we build a network of support that we can turn to when life gets hard. And we discover that we really aren't going through things alone, or that we at least don't have to. There's a quote in here from, I believe it's Gabby Bernstein, who says, we're often afraid of being vulnerable, but vulnerability creates genuine connection. Brene Brown talks about vulnerability being actually an act of courage. We don't think about it that way. We think about that idea of being vulnerable with someone as terrifying, right? That we think, well, or we say that's a sign of weakness, that we have to be open with someone about our feelings. That means that we have to admit that we're struggling with something. But actually, that vulnerability takes a lot of guts. And so we're the most courageous when we're able to be vulnerable with other people. And vulnerability is what leads to those strong relationships. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. And so it's going to be important, if we're going to build resilience to help prepare us for hardships, is to have those positive relationships in our lives to help support us. The last thing is practicing self-care. I don't know if there's a slide for this one or not, but that's, I think, is one of the most important things that I can kind of end this with and send people home to practice on their own. Is at the very least, if you're going to do anything, is just get really good at prioritizing self-care. Here's a quote from the American Psychological Association. It says, self-care may be a popular buzzword, but it's also a legitimate practice for mental health and for building resilience. That's because stress is just as much physical as it is emotional. Promoting positive lifestyle factors like proper nutrition, ample sleep, hydration, and regular exercise can strengthen your body to adapt to stress and reduce the toll of emotions like anxiety or depression. And so if we're going to do anything this week or moving forward, maybe the biggest challenge is, how can you prioritize yourself, tend to your needs, and practice making yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually stronger, so that when you do face that inevitability of adversity, you're more prepared to handle that. So that's it for today.
Thank you very much, John. That was a great presentation, and we appreciate your wealth of knowledge. There's some really good takeaways there. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to reach out and talk to us. We are watching the chat box, and we are still live. If you look in the top corner there, you'll see the red rectangular with the word live. So that's how you know if you're watching the replay or the live version of our stream this morning. We will, at the conclusion of this seminar, I will post the video so you can watch this replay again if you want to go back and re-listen to some of what John just said. If you would like to schedule an appointment with one of Frontera's licensed professional counselors, or to find out more about Wellness Uncorked, please give us a call at 325-597-0102. Frontera offers counseling services in person and virtually. As part of the Wellness Uncorked initiative, we are having free group counseling classes to individuals who work in the hospitality, retail, and service industries. So if this is something that interests you and you'd like to find out more and see if you qualify for our free counseling services, please call that number and we can get you connected. We have 6 licensed professional counselors here on our team, and we can share information so that we can help match you with the counselor that best meets your needs. And I think I about covered it. Is there anything, John?
No, that sounds great. Yeah, we're happy to help, and always look forward to and have room to help people in our communities, whether it's Junction, Menard, Mason, Brady, or anywhere, even in the outlying areas. We can always make room in our schedules to fit people even virtually. So.
Yes, and a little bit more about Frontera. Frontera is a community health center. We offer sliding scale discounts for those who have a documented inability to pay. It's based on income and family household size. So that can help if you're experiencing financial hardships to receiving care. And also through the Wellness Uncorked grant, we can help with counseling services there. And like I said, this seminar is something that we're going to be holding monthly. So if you liked what you heard today, you can catch us again next month. It'll be the first Monday of the month at 11 a.m. And we'll be sure to post, if you'll go follow Frontera Healthcare Network's Facebook page or Instagram, we'll post there. And if you give the number on your screen a call, the 325 number, you can also register to sign up for our email list and receive email notifications of upcoming Wellness Uncorked events, live seminars, health fairs. Frontera has clinics in Mason, Menard, Junction, Fredericksburg, and Brady. But like I said, if you can't come in person, we can meet you where you are, and we can have virtual counseling available to you as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We appreciate it. We're going to sign off now, but like I said, we will post the replay so you can go back, and if there's any parts that you want to give a second listen to, you can catch it again. Thank you. Have a great week.